So now they go on Snapchat and TikTok and all these things, and they employ primarily kids. We've seen as young as 12 years old. And they'll employ 14, 15, 16-year-olds, 17, 18. Why? Because they know that if they're under 18, the chances of them getting charged are low because they're juveniles. You put 5 people in your car and you drive them to Phoenix, you're going to get $1,000 per person, $5K. For a kid that's 15, 16 years old.
What I don't understand is how the cartels are making money trafficking people into the U.S. when there essentially is no border. So what exactly is the cartel facilitating, and how are they able to control our border and who's coming across and who's paying and we're not?
So this is somewhat of an intricate thing, part of it, because there's the other part of it's the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations. The non-governmental organizations are charities that are being funded by taxpayer dollars. And so those charities have an incentive to continue to have a problem because they will continue to get money for their charities. Some of them well-intentioned, many of them are aiding and abetting in human trafficking. So the cartels know that these NGOs are willing to bring people to the border to bring them into this country. I think the flow of people would be greater into America if the cartel had the ability to handle more people coming into the country. You must pay the cartels. If they find out you don't pay them, you could end up dead in the desert. And so most people will not take the risk. Every now and then you might find somebody, which are very, very few and far between, who did not pay the cartels some money to come across.
How would they know though?
Because as soon as they get into the border state, the countries, and the cartels know they watch the airports when they land on these planes at the airports in Mexico. They know these large groups coming up. You only have to shoot 1 or 2 people in front of a large group of people before they'll all get in line and say, yep, I'll pay you, or I'm going to make sure that you get your money. The cartels have plenty of people. They have an army of people to ensure that you are not crossing the border unless you've paid the cartels. So the cartels control the flow of people into this country.
But they're not actually smuggling. Are they actually smuggling people in?
They have smugglers. They have smugglers at work that will get them right up to the fence. I was flying our helicopter just 3 weeks ago. And we were flying along, which, by the way, we went from the reservation to Nogales, which is probably 100 and something miles, maybe more, 200 miles. We didn't see a single Border Patrol agent in that time. No MSC trucks, which are your radar, they've got the sonar systems and stuff. We didn't see any of those. No Border Patrol agents. We did see Mexican military on the other side. And then we saw some guy walk a group of people, line them up at the fence, check everybody, let the first group come across, lines the second group up, checks everybody again. We're flying right overhead. They have no care in the world. And they're leading them right into the country. And we filmed them as they walked into the country, right through the opening in the fence. And that cartel guy walks back, gets in his car, drives back.
Can we overlay that video?
Yeah,
on this
I'll
podcast?
get you the video. Yeah, I'll give it to you before we leave here.
Perfect. Everybody needs to see this.
And this is what happens every day. This is not an uncommon occurrence. This is every day. In my county, we have had a 371% increase, 366% increase in traffic stops involving human smuggling. We have had a 471% increase in pursuits involving human smuggling. We chased a guy the other day. We actually pulled him over, and the deputy's talking to him, and all his stuff isn't lining up. And so finally he says, "Hey, can I search your car?" Boom, guy takes off. So then we get after him. We ended up spiking his car 3 times, and I think we popped at least 3 of his tires, if not all 4. He was still driving 80 miles per hour on the rims of his vehicle. We finally pitted him. We got him off to the side, and we hear this pounding on the trunk after we take him into custody, and he had a juvenile in the trunk of his car, and illegal, that it was there against his will. We pull over cars all the time. We've seen 4Runners with 16 people in it. pull over cars all the time that are people in it. So it goes back to you asked me before, how do we know who's trafficking? And what I started to tell you was it used to be easier because the people that were trafficking worked for the cartels. They changed their business model. They have so much money, they were able to change the business model, and it was genius. What they said was, let's employ Americans to do it. So now they go on Snapchat and TikTok and all these things, and they employ primarily kids. We've seen as young as 12 years old. And they'll employ 14, 15, 16-year-olds, 17, 18. Why? Because they know that if they're under 18, the chances of them getting charged are low because they're juveniles. And so what they do is they get these kids, they pay them $1,000 a body. So if you put 5 people in your car that you're in camouflage clothes and carpet shoes and backpacks, some of these gotaways you hear about, you put 5 people in your car and you drive them to Phoenix, you're going to get $1,000 per person, $5K. For a kid that's 15, 16 years old. So now it's hard because what we used to look for were temp tags and other things. Now it's really hard to find them because they're just grabbing grandma's car or their own car, and the cars don't fit what we used to be used to. And so that's just Americans going down and taking their car down. We've had them fly in. We busted a lady the other day. She flew from California, rented a Turo, which is like Airbnb for cars, rents this Turo, drives down to the border, picks up, I think she had 3 or 4, picks them up, drives back. I was actually with Mike Glover that day. Mike Glover was in the car with me when we got the stop on that car. And she's like, I don't know who they are. They just needed a ride. I don't know. And it turned out they were all illegals. They were in their camouflage clothes and their carpet shoes. And she had flown in just for that reason, rented a car, drove down and picked them up, was going to go back, drop them off, turn their car back in, and fly back home and have made $4,000. So how do you combat that? How do you combat that in law enforcement? How do we look for cars when they're employing Americans? And there is no, how do you investigate up? If I bust you, Shawn, but you have no idea who's above you, how am I going to work that investigation up? I could go on to social media, but social media is not really helping. They're aiding and abetting in it. They're the ones providing the platforms for the cartels to be able to recruit Americans. And so I was testifying in Congress, and you had these politicians kept saying to me, well, it's Americans doing it, not the cartels. And I said, hold on, you keep saying that like that's a good thing. I don't see that as good as all. What I see is you've allowed the cartels to make so much money that they can now employ Americans to come in and do their transnational criminal activity in America. That's not okay. Like we are allowing them to recruit our teenagers because they're paying them so much money. So, I mean, it is a cluster. It's a cluster beyond what people can imagine.
They think that this is a good idea.
It's a good idea for what they want. What they want is to reinvent America. They want it fundamental. Those are not my words. Those are their campaign slogans. To fundamentally transform America and to reinvent America. And whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or independent, that should set off alarms in your head that you want to reinvent America. And so what we saw immediately was the undermining of the rule of law, because that's the fabric of America. And what better way to undermine the rule of law than to open the borders? You begin to flood our communities with, they don't end up dealing with the end product. The federal government doesn't go out and respond to 911 calls. They don't pick up the mess. They don't clean up the house when we have to go over and find a 15-year-old who just died from a fentanyl poisoning. Mom's there crying, dad's crying, and we have to explain to them how this happened when we know good and darn well where it came from. The feds don't clean that up. We clean it up. And what it's doing is it's undermining the rule of law. It's destabilizing society. It's reinventing America. And it's changing the demographic of America. Now, people, when I say that, they say, oh, you're talking white people. No, I'm not talking about that. American demographic is whites, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, people from all over the world. If you are an American, then that is who I'm talking about. But what you're doing is allowing all these people that are coming from countries and they're not Americans. And you're basically now, I mean, there's estimations that there's anywhere between 40 to 60 million illegals in this country right now that have come over here over the last, not just the last 3 years, but for many years. And so what allegiance do they have to America? You're basically changing the demographic. You saw it in France, you saw it in Germany, you saw it. So when they look at it, if that's your end goal, is to destabilize America, to reinvent America, to change all aspects of it, then, or to change the voters, to be able to get them to vote, I mean, then yes, they look at it probably as that their plan is succeeding.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.